welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about Criss-Cross, written by Matt Fitton. This is the introduction story to when Codebreaker, Constable Clark, a Codebreaker. However, this isn't actually her first appearance. Yes, this is her first chronological appearance. However, she also appeared in the box set The Last Adventures, which we've tackled before. And that box set features a story with her. And what happened was that despite that story being written before this one, this was actually written retrospectively from her next story. The scheduling got mixed up, and so the Last Adventure box set was actually released a few months earlier than this. So this is her first chronological appearance, but not her first story overall. And like I said, that story was written before this one, as it's stated in the documentary on the DVD, on the CD, sorry. And so this is probably one of the few occasions where a writer has to write the companion's origin, their appearance story, based off a later story. Very strange working like that, but I just thought it was a very interesting note to put onto the production. This one is set during World War II. I do apologise for the massive blur of light just then. The sun is out and it's just been raining. This story is set during World War II, and it's got, the production makes you really feel like you're in a World War II production. Usually Big Finish have two routes. They either go have very accurate period accurate for the times these Doctors came out. So when you tackle a 6th Doctor story, it would have like synthesizers and, it'll sound like it came from the 80s. Or what Big Finish would do, especially if it's a score by Howard Carter, is that they would make it feel like its own thing. Like Big Finish has their own style in terms of music. It's like cinematic on a cheap budget. That's how I like to put it. But here, they actually did something very different, which I think really works to this story's favour. They actually used soundtracks. The soundtrack is actually made to sound like it came from a 1940s war film. I believe this is from 1944, the episode is set in, but I could be wrong. It's 4 parts long, on 2 discs. This is the official Big Finish CD cover, which also introduces a new costume for the 6th Doctor, as he's supposed to be going incognito. And despite, I'm not too keen on the bow tie. I like the colours of it. I really like the grey and the blues of it. And I must be honest, it's actually, wow, I don't know, why am I so pale? Anyway, I really like the colours of it, and it's got to be honest, it's actually my favourite costume that we've tackled of the 6th Doctor. But I wish it was, it had the same colour palette on his original costume. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, that's really cool. And like always, I make my own DVD cover. I couldn't find one online, so I put this together using a HG image of this cover, which I found online. So it's the same basically, but I've kind of extended it a bit so that the red line of the British flag actually crosses over to the side there. So that's really cool. Here's the side if anyone is interested. Sorry for why column big is really blurry there. And of course, we've got the back. Got some golden eggs there. Hey, maybe we're on an Easter hunt. So the story starts off with Sylvia, one of the Wern girls who is very mathematically smart and intelligent. She goes into the office of Dr. John Smith, which is of course the doctor in disguise. He's taken up a base in, Branchley Park, the secret base of to break codes and stuff against the Nazi enemies. So this is the code, and she's bringing all of her work to the doctor, and the doctor is like, thank you. Now here's a bunch of other stuff I want you to do. Quick, come on. And she's like, oh, okay. And then and that's how the story kicks off before we get the intro music. So it's a nice little cold starter. And the first half of episode 1 is really just setting up our characters as Constable Clark orders her women to get working, her tea breaks over. However, she notices that Sylvia has gone missing and that she's actually in the bathroom crying her eyes out. And she's crying because she hasn't had a break for, I believe, 2 days straight. The doctor has been overworking her. And Constable is like, sees this and is like, this is absolutely disgusting. This is absolutely appalling. We put up with these people because they're geniuses, but that doesn't give them the right to have any lack of decency and respect. So I'm going to march into his office and storm in and basically tell him who's boss. So right off the bat, Constable comes off as a very strong-headed character. She's played by Maria Ranson, who you might be more familiar with her playing Tallulah in the 10th Doctor adventure, The Daleks in Manhattan, and I can't remember what the other one, Evolution of the Daleks, I believe it was. She is that New York girl who does the song The Devil in Me. And I remember hearing about this story. I really wanted to start... this was actually a story I've actually listened to before the marathon. And this was the first time I was introduced to a audio exclusive companion. That was the main reason I picked this up. When I found out it was her playing the companion, I was really hesitant because a lot of people didn't like her character then. And despite me liking the character, her performance and everything, her becoming a companion, the idea of her becoming a companion sounds really draining. However, when you actually listen to it in the story, you couldn't tell, you can't really tell that they're the same person. Constable is an upper class, she's been educated and she's much more stubborn, and she has a posh British accent compared to a New York accent in Daleks in Manhattan, at least the actress is anyway. And she works off incredibly well with Colin Baker. Despite this being a Sixth Doctor at his much later lifespan, where he's much more calm, he's much more relaxed, he's much more in line with the core Doctor than he was in his TV appearances. But it doesn't mean that he isn't still prone to some sort of outbursts and but he does actually have outbursts, but he has a lack of seeing when he is in the wrong. Like he doesn't see like he's overworking his staff and stuff. And so Constable is like, how dare you, sir? My Sylvia was in tears because of you. May I remind you that the women, the people working here are only allowed 2 shifts per day, and they're not allowed to work any more than that. You are putting this poor girl through the strain, and the doctor's like, originally he's like, well, I need her. What I'm doing is very important, and I really need her mathematical skills. And Constable's is like, yes, okay, but you can't work her to death, and you've got to have some decency. And after a discussion, the doctor is like, okay, I'm really sorry. Is it okay if next time I talk to you directly? And she's like, yeah, okay. So it all gets mattered up. It's a little tension at the start, just to really set up the dynamic between the Doctor, Constable, and Sylvia, and they three work really well. And you do get the feeling that the Doctor is trying to set them both up as a companion. Like, he's kind of like working with them, and is like not only like trying to save the day, because, you know, he's the Doctor, but he's looking at them and he's feeling, right, they have potential to travel with me as my companions. He never actually states this, but yeah. And the Doctor reveals that he's trying to look for a particular secret code. He's been tracking mysterious words and their meanings. One of them being golden egg, which also somehow ties in with the movements of a particular agent. I can't remember his name. Agent Stern, Burn, blah, 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 blah. Agent Spark, sorry. His name is Agent Spark. So the Doctor tries to plan a course to get, to basically set a tracker for Agent Spark and these eggs, whilst Constable is setting her women to get on to work on cracking these codes to find out where the most recent mention of the golden eggs are. However, some British enforcers noticed that they try to do background checks on everybody, and they noticed that when you look into Dr. John Smith's, his credentials seem to disappear as much as you look at them. So they believe that he's some sort of spy. And so after they've cracked the code, and that Constable and Sylvia take a van with the TARDIS on it to the gate to wait for the Doctor. The Doctor is in his office whilst he's getting knocked on some, gets bammed on some door with some guards. This brings out a lot of the Sixth Doctor's humour in this. Like, he pretends he didn't know that the door was locked. He refuses to open it because he's like, hold on, I'm doing a crossword puzzle. And yeah, Colin Baker's a lot more charming and much more sweet in this one, especially his relationship with the girls in this cast. So he gets free and he gets into the car where they track it just outside a base. Here we find out there is actually a Nazi officer in Britain talking to Agent Flynn, who turns out to be Spark. And he also goes by the Nazi group as Agent Criss-Cross, as he first reveals that he's an agent for the Nazis, and that he's been tracking these eggs. He's been finding these eggs all over the West Coast, believing that they are some sort of Nazi things. And this his investigation led them to this particular Nazi officer, and so Doctor, Constable, and Sylvia land outside this base, and they order Sylvia to stay put whilst they wander off. However, Sylvia gets caught by some guards, by Nazi guards, but not for long, as the device that the Doctor was using to track these golden eggs suddenly comes to life and starts speaking, and then all of a sudden an electrocution comes out of it, killing one of the Nazis, and it also knocks Sylvia unconscious. And the Doctor and Constantine, they go up to the base and they see a wire which seems to be tied up to a bomb timer. And the cliffhanger for part 1 is actually the Doctor is like red or green, red or blue, red, that's what I thought, snaps the red one. We were both wrong, quickly run! And they run, and then the alarm goes off. And that's our cliffhanger for part 1. The cliffhangers are just those small burst ones, the ones that get resolved straight after the next episode airs, which I think is a kind of a bummer. But there are some decent moments in here, and really heightens the action and the wartime feel of it all. In the next episode, it's revealed that it was just a timer with no actual bomb in it. There's no actual anything in it. And the British actually track down this base and actually capture all the Nazis in it. They rescue Sylvia, who has survived. And it turns out that Agent Criss-Cross, was actually a double agent for the British. He was just pretending to work for the Nazis to work for the British. And they don't really know about the Doctor at this moment, so they capture him and ask him questions about everything. But the Doctor has realised that these eggs are coming out some sort of communication. Whatever killed the Nazi outside was part of an alien life form which communicates by signal waves. The investigations, I can't remember, maybe they get in the TARDIS. Yeah, they get in the TARDIS so that the Doctor can prove that he is not a Nazi. Tracks it to an underground, it's either a base or a submarine. I'm not too sure. But down in the submarines, in this underwater base, no radio signals can get in there. And originally everybody else thinks that means they're safe from this signal, whatever this thing is. But the Doctor concurs otherwise. He states that this creature he's been tracking, it's been creating all this interference, is a living sentient waveform. And being down here, there's nothing to distract it. And so the waveform takes its full appearance as a beam of light, a waveform in midair. It also has these Chandira, these like robotic ghost-like warriors that like it obeys it very well. And we get a little backstory onto what the waveform is. It's actually called the waveform. And I really love this description. And I think this is one of the few, because it's like so like heavy dump in exposition in this, it's done in a way I think it can only really work in an audio drama form. If this was a television episode or comic book, you might feel like there might be some over dialogue, but here I think it works extraordinarily well. Basically, what's happened is that on a completely other plane of reality, in which sentient life forms are alive in radio waves, in radiation, there's an entire culture that is unseen to us physical 3D forms self. So there's this whole culture, this whole society that we can't even grasp is what it's like. And the waveform states that there has been a war that's broken out in its society between the ultraviolet and I can't remember what the opposite of ultraviolet is. There's an ultra ray war, and this creature has basically come to a wavelength that is more perceivable to human life and can actually speak, so it can avoid its own war. That is just so creative. I really, really love this idea. It's a fantastic way to world build your scenario, and it really fits with the theme of war and a lack of understanding of other sides and cultures in this adventure. And it just really fits the period setting, and it just really entices you into the story. I don't know what is happening with my hand here, but what can I say? So the Doctor originally plans to take the waveform back with him, taking everybody with him into the TARDIS to go back to Brenchley Park, where Constable and her girls are going to work the code to try and get this waveform back into a much more safer dimension, and in a world where it's not bombarded with radio waves, because the radio waves seems to, I don't know if it hurts it or makes it harder to communicate with the physical world. And so it gets to work with the Doctor and everything. However, Agent Criss-Cross then turns his gun to the Doctor and Constable. As he reveals, he's not only a double agent, he's a triple agent, working for the waveform, because he's made a deal with the waveform. He's met it previously, stating that it's made a bargain. It'll give it peace of mind and prosperity, and help with its war, if only they help him with his war and allow him to become the ruler of the world, or Earth at least. And Criss-Cross, I believe his real name is Robbie Flynn. He has got this like a knack. He's got like a kind of like an East End way he speaks. Reminds me a lot like Phil Mitchell from EastEnders, the way he speaks. And he's a very fun character and a very likeable, like you don't really know whose side he's on, and he feels a lot more like he's in it for himself, kind of like a Han Solo character in that sense, when you first see Han Solo at the start of A New Hope. And until this twist, we thought that he was actually working for the British, but actually he's a triple agent going by the name Criss-Cross. So a lot of great twists and turns, and luckily for them, their appearance is just in time for when the German occupants change all their code, so everything gets resetted back at Brenchley Park's code break-in, and the Doctor comes up with this plan to he basically puts Sylvia on a new task to make a much more complicated, almost unbreakable code, and one that is caught in some sort of paradox that doesn't make any real lick of sense. And the Doctor uses this then to trap the waveform into its egg, saving the day, but not before the waveform tries to extract Criss-Cross's mind, trying to get some information that will stop it from getting trapped. However, Flynn doesn't really know anything, and so I believe his mind also gets trapped in this egg form thing as well. So that's really the end of the story. The Doctor actually offers Sylvia a chance in the TARDIS, but she turns it down, thinking that there's an important, she's very important to stay there and help in the war efforts. Something I forgot to mention, which becomes really important here, is throughout the story there's this whole mystery on Miss Clark's husband, who where he is. Nobody's given her any information. He seems to be missing in action. She talks to Flynn, Criss-Cross, around about halfway through the story, as he has stated he gets in contact with many different agents, and he states that he recognises the name, but he doesn't know what happened to him. Sorry. And later on, when they have the Nazi officer, the prisoner, she puts a gun to his head and asks him, does he know anything about her husband? And so there's a little storyline that's going around about her husband. When she's waiting in the TARDIS for the Doctor and all that, she listens up onto the scanner and he hears Sylvia and one of the British officers talking just outside the TARDIS, and they say there's some secret information that not even Clark may know. It's something top secret about her husband and that nobody can know. And she listens in, kind of feels, I don't know if she feels like betrayed, but she's very curious. And so she asks the Doctor, can she go with him? And the Doctor reluctantly agrees at first, because he kind of feels like that she's got like a alternative motive. But he thinks that she is still a very nice, decent person. So why not come along with me in my travels? And the Doctor is originally like Constable Clark, and she's like, please, it's either Ren Clark or Miss Clark. And the Doctor doesn't like this to begin with, saying like, it's really formal. Can I just call you Constable? And she's like, but your name is just the Doctor. Yes. So formally, it doesn't really matter. So please just refer to me as Miss Clark or Warren Clark. And the Doctor then reluctantly agrees. He's like, okay, if you want to be formal about it, okay. And they head off into their next adventure. Now, before I end this video, I just want to state that this, from what I can gather, this mystery of her husband's disappearance becomes a plot thread in a few stories. I believe it gets resolved in a story called Quicksilver, which also reintroduces Flip back into the TARDIS team and has them travel in a pair of three. The Doctor, Miss Clark and Flip. And so they all travel together. But however, I haven't got those stories. In fact, to my shame, I only have 2 Constable Clark's stories. This one and the next one, which we'll be on about. So that's Criss-Cross. Overall, it's a lot of fun. It feels very in tune with its period setting. The characters are a lot of fun, and the villain is such a very creative idea for a villain. And I'd like to see more sound-based creatures in audio Doctor Who. I think they work extremely well. I believe in the first solo 6 Doctor story of audio dramas, he also fought a sentient sound wave. So Maybe I'll go and check out that one day. Who knows? Sounds right up my alley. There's not really much to talk about. It's a great setup for a new companion. The Doctor is very well executed in the story, and it's just a lot of fun. So there you go, that's Criss-Cross. So join me next time when the Doctor and Miss Clark find themselves on a mysterious train station and two old foes. So join me next time for the end of the lane. And I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-ra!